Joe, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, Nick. Thank you.
Excellent. So I guess to start off with, Joe, can you please introduce yourself and Landstar to the audience?
Sure. My name is Joe Beacom. I am the Chief Safety and Operations Officer here at Landstar. I've been around a very long time. For those that maybe don't understand the model, this topic today is right in our wheelhouse. In 2019, we did about $4 billion in revenue. We serviced roughly 25,000 different customers. And in servicing those customers, we use an exclusively entrepreneurial agent base, sales agent base. And those agents service those customers with not only the selling aspects, but also the operational and capacity sourcing aspects to meet customer expectations. And then from the capacity perspective, we service our customers with more than 10,000 owner-operators, and then a largely small carrier database that services them on the truck side. Truck is about 92% of our overall business. So the model really, in the context of this conversation, a lot of people invest in things that they would have in their offices and that they would use to acquire capacity and book loads and all these kind of things. At the Landstar model really is about what technology and what processes and what resources can we put in the hands of our entrepreneurs to allow them to go out and run their small businesses and compete across the landscape within the supply chain. So it's a little bit different way that we attack the market using third-party entrepreneurs to do so. Nick.
Excellent, perfect. So I guess getting into the interview today, can you just kind of summarize how important entrepreneurs are within the logistics and transportation industry?
Sure. Well, I've kind of given you the landscape of Landstar. We're in the small business, and we are great believers in the entrepreneurial spirit and what that brings to the table. But more broadly, I think in the industry, there are 17,000 or so freight brokers out there. Many of those entrepreneurs, small businesses, family-owned. There are roughly 350,000 owner-operators in the business supporting customers across North America and doing so as entrepreneurs. And then according to ATA, of the more than 500,000 motor carriers that do interstate transportation, 93% of those are small businesses, less than 20 trucks, and in many cases, entrepreneurs. So I think, as is the case in many industries, the small business entrepreneurial aspect is alive and well in transportation and in the supply chain business in general. And I think there's some things that I see that entrepreneurs bring to the table that are pretty critical and that sometimes differentiate themselves from others in the market. Entrepreneurs tend to be heavily invested in the business, right? They have financial investment in the business, and their execution really is their livelihood. If they can't compete or they can't execute and meet customer expectations, their business is at risk. It's oftentimes entrepreneurs are generational, as in the case of Landstar. Our entrepreneurial sales agents, we have now second and third generation agents servicing the same niches, servicing the same customers. And with that, you just get this great amount of knowledge and account strategy that's very focused to the point where, in many cases, our agents know their customer, and I suspect many brokers know their customers as well or better than they know themselves. When you talk about their customer's customer or their vendors and all the different things that go into managing a supply chain, I think there's a lot of value add. And these entrepreneurs that are so invested do that really well. I mean, they've got skin in the game. This is not a job. This is their career. This is their passion. This is more than a career, right? I think you see them delivering service at a level that is very high and very consistent, just because of the amount of commitment they have to have in order to make their business grow and to pass that business from one generation to the other.
Excellent. So I think something that's come up time and time again, especially recently over the last kind of 18 to 24 months, has been kind of the evolution of the industry when it comes to technological innovation. So there's been obviously many technologies that have entered the transportation space, looking to automate, various tasks like finding capacity, freight matching, tracking freight, etc. Can you kind of speak to the balance of technology and the human element of these developments?
Sure, Nick, thanks. Well, I think automation that's come from technology and innovation, I think has really been good for the supply chain, good for customers, good for brokers, good for small carriers and owner operators in general. I think brokers are really oftentimes the users of a lot of this new technology, right? Whether it's in the pricing arena or the capacity sourcing arena or the shipment tracking arena. I think brokers have really been the ones that have been a great user of this technology, and it's been to the benefit of their customers, right? So brokers and carriers now, again, as they use this technology, brokers being the aggregators of small carrier capacity, they can use this technology to have better connectivity, better transparency with this disparate group of capacity providers out there. We talked about the 93% of the 500,000 are small carriers. The brokers with these tools and this technology, this puts them on a playing field that maybe they weren't in the past, because this technology allows them to provide a unified response to a customer, to manage and aggregate capacity perhaps more beneficially to a customer. I think you see all that happening now. I think it's exciting, and I think there's a couple of good examples. The most obvious example is, I think, in the shipment tracking arena. It wasn't too many years ago, Nick, that you had to, if you were a customer, oftentimes you lean towards those large asset-based providers in order to get true visibility of your shipments, because they tracked the assets that they owned, and it was pretty easy. I think today, with some of the technology that you described and some that's out there in the industry, you can be a broker using a number of different small carriers, but the technology exists to where you can track all those providers and provide a unified response to a customer. That wasn't the case before. That is the case today. Some of those same advancements are made around capacity sourcing, where not only do you have brokers being able to go to their carrier base, but now they're in a better position through relationship management software and those kind of things that are out there, to where they're looking at a customer's book of business and they're trying to place that with the right capacity. It can't just be just anybody. It has to be somebody who wants to haul that freight, somebody that can get a competitive price because this fits their other business that they're doing. Those kind of things were very manual, very hard to do. I think some of the developments that we've seen and some of the innovation around some of the tools allows brokers, large and small, to use this technology to their benefits. And then lastly, because we are very much in the owner-operator space, it's all about putting good information in the hands of the decision makers. And if you think about small carriers and owner-operators, they're making decisions off of mobile devices and tablets and laptops. And so what this innovation has done, it's allowed for information to flow to those devices. And so they're making equally as well-informed decisions off of a smartphone or a tablet as they would be if they were a dispatcher among 100 dispatchers in an office somewhere. So I think it's really leveled the playing field in many respects for the broker, as well as for the small carrier and owner operator. And the balance, good question. I mean, I think the customer ultimately will determine the balance, right? They're going to be the ones that decide whether this carrier or this broker or this is meeting my expectations. I just think that brokers are in a very good position today if they are smart about technology, understanding what's out there. I think they've always understood what the customer wanted. I think there's other avenues for them to meet those expectations. So if they're willing to not let technology be a differentiator in a bad way for them, I think they're in a pretty good place in that regard. And as a broker, you need to also have great technology relationships as well as capacity relationships. And I think that's where the human element comes in. You can have great technology, but if you don't have a capacity base and you don't know the owners or the needs and wants and desires of your capacity, it's hard to use that technology to put the two together. So I think, that human element of this, is going to be accelerated and augmented through the use of technology. But I still think human element is going to be key. But there's a lot of technology that's out there that helps take it and make it more effective, if you will, in bundling it and then providing value back to the shipper.
Excellent. So obviously a lot has been made about supply chain in the last 6 to 8 months with everything that's gone on in 2020. Obviously we've seen the trucker getting new spotlight in kind of the mainstream media, so to speak. But I guess given that context, can you talk to how the last 6 months have shifted the balance between, I guess, the technology element that you spoke about and the human element as well?
Sure. I think, kind of like I said, that shift, I think technology plays a role there. But I think, in the last 6 months, and you talk about what's going on in the disruption of supply chains globally, and then here domestically, very much so. And I think what the last 6 months has taught us is that those relationships and that level of communication is really key to being really partners in the process, right? So there has to be, and there has been, I think, great empathy and understanding for the other party. I think customers have been very understanding of the disruption from a capacity perspective, and maybe there's a lot of capacity that sees themselves or their family in an at-risk position, so they're not out actively operating at this moment. They're going to wait and see, that kind of thing. And I think the converse is true, where capacity providers have seen that, as a customer, I need to take your temperature. I need to ask you some questions. I need you to maybe operate a little bit differently within my facility that you did before. So I think, that relationship and that communication has clearly come to the forefront in the last 6 months. And again, another thing I think you see happening, and I think it will stick, is there's been a greater desire to do things via APIs or via EDI. You've seen a proliferation of e-documentation, so people want to do things because remote workforces. We've got nearly our entire workforce working from home, and so you make changes to facilitate that remote work. I think that's happening across industries and across our industry for sure. And I think a lot of those things are here to stay, and I think they're good things. They're advancements that perhaps wouldn't have been made if it weren't for the situation we're in today. But the biggest thing I think that has been very well demonstrated is the relationships, the personal relationships, and understanding each other's pain points, and then being able to get on the phone or get on Teams or get on Zoom with your customer and figure this stuff out. I think that has really borne itself out over the last 6 months.
Definitely. So obviously, a part of the supply chain that is so pivotal is the drivers themselves, and those folks have had, I guess, a newfound appreciation given what's been going on in the last 6 months. Can you speak to, I guess, the drivers specifically, and what technologies or what strategies are helping them to stay at the forefront?
Sure. I think it's kind of the other side of what you've seen from the broker standpoint. I think what we've seen is significant developments in the way that capacity providers, carriers, owner-operators can communicate, their preferences and let brokers understand, everybody has a certain piece of business, but maybe you need backhauls, or maybe you need other elements that support your small business or larger business. I think the way that those things can be communicated now and communicated in real time have been a benefit. I think you've seen some of the load management tools that are capacity facing get better, right? So instead of trying to go through and look at tens of thousands of loads, you can manipulate the data such that you see what you want to see, and you see what enhances your small business and allows you to offer services that are really in your sweet spot, so that you can deliver on that service and do so at a competitive price. I think we've seen that mature quite a bit. And then the other, and it's going back a few years here domestically, is the ELDs. And ELDs were not a good thing for small capacity providers. There was a lot of concern about ELDs and what it was going to do to their small business. But what I think we've seen is those devices have now been embraced, because those devices are now providing the position data that carriers, whether you're 1 truck or 3 trucks or 20 trucks or 1,000 trucks, you can provide position data to your assets, to those that are looking to provide opportunities to you for your next load and your next load and your next load. So that trepidation over ELDs has kind of gone away because the data and the information is being used in a beneficial fashion. And I think what you're going to see on the horizon, and we're starting to see it now, is there's more technology coming into the truck. There's always been OEM technology that was there for drivers, mostly in small fleets. Your smaller carriers and owner-operators tend to run used equipment. But what you're seeing is more technology in the aftermarket, more safety related technology, if you will, whether it's cameras and some of those telematics that are making their way into trucks in the aftermarket. And safety clearly is a huge issue for our industry. It's something that I think we are very much focused on as an industry. If you look at the climate that's out there and the verdicts on some of these cases and that kind of thing, and they're looking at insurance, and insurance rates are going up, the ability to put technology in the cabs of trucks for the one truck guy or the large fleet continues to be very, very important. And that should be something, and I think it is something that fleets large and small are looking at now and will continue to look at going into the future.
Excellent. So I guess as we wrap up, today's conversation, just would want you to provide, I guess, some advice for, the transportation entrepreneurs that are watching this. What advice do you have for those guys that as the industry transitions?
I think whether you're a broker or a owner operator of small carrier, I think relationships really have to be at the forefront. I think we shouldn't abandon those, and I think there is a tendency to believe that technology is going to replace relationships. I don't think that happens. I think technology can enhance that. As it relates to technology, again, I think there should be a no fear mentality. I think whether large or small, you have to understand what's out there and make intelligent decisions about what works for you. Look at technology as a way to benefit your business. If it puts better information in your hands to make decision and run your business, well, then you should definitely explore that. And then on just a more broader scale, I would say, in this time of transition, I think, you have to continually reevaluate your business. Are you where you want to be? Are your customers where you think you should be? And if the answer to that is no, you have to look to reinvent some or all parts of your business. And you can use technology to do that, but not necessarily technology in all regards. Maybe you have to get out of your comfort zone from a operational standpoint, a geographic standpoint, what kind of trailers you pull, what kind of customers you call on. Maybe certain niches of business that you've been in before have changed and you got to migrate into something else. I just think the door is open and the economy's coming back. And I think it's a pretty much a bright spot going forward from where I sit, and a lot of good technology and non-technological aspects to the business going forward. I think it's going to be a decent finish to the year, and hopefully a very shining 2021. Excellent.
That's a nice positive way to end. Thanks a lot, Joe, for joining us today. Hopefully we can get you along in the future. Thanks a lot, and on to the next session.
Great, Nick. Thanks, and good luck with the conference.